She screams, comes around, gives him this big hug. You saved my marriage.
That's just a great reminder that we're all human. We all struggle, even the ones at the top of their game.
My dad made his whole living off of telling people how he screwed up as a husband and what he learned from that, what God taught him.
I'm 100% convinced that Jesus Christ taught about the principle of curiosity, but somehow it got left out.
I still will have people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I heard your dad tell this story and it changed my life."
We like to say the most important three words in a relationship are not "I love you," but "Am I wrong?" Welcome to Marriage IQ, the podcast helping you become an intelligent spouse.
I'm Heidi Hastings.
And I'm Scott Hastings.
We are two doctors, two researchers, two spouses, two lovers, and two incredibly different human beings coming together for one purpose: to change the stinky parts of your marriage into scintillating ones using intelligence mixed with a little fun.
Welcome back, everyone, to Marriage IQ, where we are saving civilization one marriage at a time, and the Hastings Institute for Advanced Marital Studies. You know, Heidi, I remember back in the 90s when we were just married. I know that seems like forever ago to a lot of people, but my mom gave me some cassette tapes on marriage.
Yes, for Christmas. I think that was our Christmas present one year.
There was a lot of tapes, and I thought, oh, this is great. And it talked about a lot of different topics on marriage. And
It was when we were in med school, right?
yeah, it was pretty fast and furious back then because we were off to med school and there was a lot of busyness.
I don't think we ever listened to them, did we?
I started.
Okay.
I started
I
a
think we
few.
were too busy.
I remember putting in my car because I did a lot of driving, right? And I would listen to some, but I don't think I got very far.
Well, isn't it funny that things actually come full circle? Because today we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Greg Smalley, who's the Vice President of Marriage and Family Formations at Focus on the Family, the very organization that produced those cassette tapes that you listened to some and I didn't listen to at all.
I think the idea was great, though. Like, it's because there's a lot to know. There are a lot of cassette tapes.
Right. So Greg oversees the initiatives that prepare people for marriage, strengthen couples in lots of different seasons of life, and that also bring real healing to those couples who are in crisis. He's the author of more than 20 books, including a couple I thought sounded interesting: Reconnected, Moving from Roommates to Soulmates in Your Marriage, and 9 Lies That Will Destroy Your Marriage. So he's married to Erin, and together they've created the curriculum for Ready to Wed, which is premarital curriculum. Such a very needed and important thing. And they've also created the Focus on Marriage assessment. So these are tools that have, along with the books, transformed countless marriage relationships. One thing we love most about Greg and Erin in watching them, listening to some of their content, is that they're really open about the struggles that they faced early in their marriage, but with humility and with humor and intentionality, which is another one of our cornerstones. They've been able to really build a beautiful marriage themselves. They said that one of the Christmas traditions they have, and Greg, I'll see if you still do this, is to read a book on marriage together every Christmas season. So welcome, Greg. Do you still do that?
Well, thank you for having me. And we still do. Yeah. And so actually this year, what we're doing is, because we did this last year and we so loved it, that we found a great marriage therapist. And so we will go spend a full day. We don't have a big agenda. There's not like, hey, we're in Christ. It's none of that.
Yeah.
We just always want to be doing something to grow. And last year was such a fun experience. I mean, we just went and, well, let's just talk. And we got into some great stuff that I didn't even know we needed to process through. And so in January, we actually have our appointments. So we're going to go see her. And that's in a substitute for a book that we would typically read. But do something. That's the point.
Oh, what about that, honey?
I love
They
that
teach
idea.
this stuff and they still go and brush up and
Yeah.
they're always learning and curious.
Kind of like that annual checkup
Yes, that's great modeling for the people that you teach.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna send you guys the digital link to those videotapes that my dad put together, so I can get you set up great. Hey, one of my all-time favorite stories, though, of my parents. So my dad, Gary Smalley, who authored those videotapes you guys were talking about, was when we were in Hawaii. We were doing a marriage event, and so they get in this huge fight. So we somehow ended up at this ice cream store later on that night before the event was going to even start. And they're still totally mad at each other. And so they're about to order from this ice cream lady. And my dad jokes, she's, "Hey, how you guys doing?" And he goes, "Ah, we're in a big fight." And she goes, "I tell you what, my husband and I, we've been married 40 years and we went through a really hard season." And she goes, "One morning I was up, I was just restless. I couldn't sleep. I was praying. And all of a sudden I had the TV on and some guy comes on selling marriage videos." And she goes, "I thought it was a sign." They were so good. She goes, "They so transformed our marriage that just, I don't know you guys, but I just want to encourage you, find those videos. They're by a guy named Gary Smalley." And I could not have been more excited that she said that. I go, "Ma'am, this couple here that hate each other, that's Gary Smalley." She screams, comes around, gives him this big hug. "You saved my marriage." And then she looks at my mom and says, "You must feel like the happiest woman on earth." All the while, they're in this huge fight. And so my mom looks at my dad and says, "You need to order those marriage videos." So there you
You
go.
know,
That is one of my favorite stories about them and those videos.
I
So
love
that
that.
is so great. That's just a great reminder that we're all human. We all struggle, even the ones at the top of their game. I think it's just okay to feel that struggle, even when you're at top of your game, because it's a long way to fall if that's how you look at it, where it's an all or nothing
right,
thinking. What a
right.
great story. Did that have anything to do with you going into what you're doing now? Or,
Yeah, definitely. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. So all through college, I was pre-law. Like I just thought that's what I wanted to do. I felt God calling me to do that. And then I didn't get into, there was one school that I really wanted to go to. I didn't get into that one. And so someone just said, "Hey, instead of just going anywhere, why don't you just sit out a year? Why don't you take some graduate classes, reapply?" I was like, "Yeah, that's smart." I ended up at Denver Seminary and I decided to take some counseling classes and do that for a year, reapply. And once I got into it, I just fell in love with counseling, with just walking with someone through whatever they're going through. And so, although I never started off going, "Hey, I want to follow in my dad's footsteps," once I got into it, I was so drawn to what he had done for all those years because, kind of like you guys were saying, what I loved about what my mom and dad did is that they were real, they were authentic. I mean, my dad made his whole living off of telling people how he screwed up as a husband and what he learned from that, what God taught him. And that was always very appealing to me because who he was at home, who I watched him be as a dad and as a father, well, as a dad and a father and a husband, who that was the same person that you saw up on the stage.
Mm.
And so there was sometimes you'll talk to pastors' kids who are like, forget church, who my dad was up on, Sunday morning preaching was so far different than who he was at home. I didn't see that. I just saw a guy who genuinely loved his wife and his kids and worked hard and was willing to go, "Hey, I screwed up here. Will you forgive me? Let's repair this." And so I was never put off by what he was doing. And it was amazing just to then travel with him, watching him speak, learning. And to this day, I mean, my dad's been with the Lord for since 2016. And yet I will, every event that Aaron and I go and teach at, I still will have people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I heard your dad tell this story and it changed my life," or "I read this book that he did." And I love that. And so definitely watching how he showed up as both a professional and as a dad and husband had a huge impact on me going I want to do that. So as I venture down this similar road, I always told Aaron, man, if I ever am saying something up on stage that I'm not living out, man, please confront me. Not that she ever needed my permission to do that, but I just because I love that authenticity. I loved how he was real in what he taught. He really tried to live out, and that shaped me in going, boy, if I do this, I want to show up in that same way. Because my parents didn't have the perfect marriage, and yet I think they were always willing to keep growing and becoming stronger together. And that's why Aaron and I go, let's go to counseling. Let's read a book. Let's do those things because I don't want my kids to go, I don't want to get married or I don't want to have a marriage like they have because that's not real. They're two different people or have two different marriages. And I don't want that.
That's great. When you're up on stage or in your books, do you find that there's one really authentic story from your own marriage that people really resonate with?
Yeah. What's fun because we've been doing this now for, 30 years is that I'll typically get requests. I feel like, I'm a DJ at a club or something.
Tell the
People come up and
story
say,
about
yeah,
whatever.
they do. And I love that. And so probably the most requests is when 2 weeks into our marriage, we're just laying in bed and Aaron just said, hey, how do you think I'm doing as a wife? And I was like, fine. And she's like, no, come on, seriously. She's like, how am I doing? I was like, I don't know. I mean, you're doing great. And so she goes, well, look at it this way. She goes 0 to 10, 10 being the best job, 0 being the worst. How would you rate me 2 weeks in? I mean, come on. What did I know at that time? Because I walked straight into going, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, Jesus would be the only 10. So, of course, I can't rate her the same I would rate Jesus. And so I think I ended up rating her a 9.3. And Aaron was a total perfectionist when it comes to academics. She graduated high school with a 4.3 GPA. She's finishing her dissertation, so she'll have her doctorate soon. So she's just this fantastic student. So to her, a 9.3 was failing. Like anything below a 98% and 9.8 was failing. Well, I didn't know that. I was a C student.
I was going to say,
Like I
how did
was
that land?
well, she starts
Not well.
crying and yeah, not well at all. We get in this big argument. And so, I mean, as a C student, I was trying to explain that like, had I ever brought that home to my parents at 93%, an A, even A minus, whatever, my parents would have slaughtered the fatted calf. I mean, we would have celebrated for a week, but we were just very different that way. And so I think it ended when she was so frustrated because I dug in and I was like, whatever. I don't remember why I dug in, but she goes, oh yeah. She goes, well, I may be a 9.3, but at least I'm not a 5 like you are.
Ugh.
And
Ugh.
as a C student, that felt actually really right. That felt comfortable and normal. And so what I love about that story is that it was a foreshadowing of the first probably 5 years of our marriage to where we so poorly handled conflict.
Mm.
And it took us a while. It got so bad that I really thought at one point she was going to leave me. I didn't know if she divorced me. I just didn't think she wanted to be around me more because we were so entrenched in conflict and we weren't doing a good job of learning how to walk through that, how to repair any of that. And so that's what I love about that story. That was our first real big fight as a married couple. And that lasted a good 5-7 years until we figured it out. We got help and we learned a lot. And here we are today, 33 years later. And we
Experts in
certainly
the
still
field.
get into yeah, right. We still have conflict, but we certainly know how to repair that now.
I think that's important to know and to reiterate, which we've talked about too a lot on this podcast, is a scintillating marriage is not conflict free. In
Right.
fact, conflict helps create that scintillation. It's part of those life's paradoxes, which there are many.
But knowing how to repair is vital,
Knowing how to repair.
or the makeup's really nice.
Yeah, it's so true, right? There's an old quote like from the 1700s. I forget who it's by, but it's like it basically says couples need to argue because that's how they get to know each other better. And I think that's the potential payout is you learn something about you as an individual, about your spouse as an individual, and then about you as a couple. So it's important to your point.
I might add, it also sometimes can help us learn about ourselves. It exposes some blind spots that,
Totally.
unless we dive in and get down to the nitty gritty of, I wonder why I said that, or what is it that triggered that
Yeah.
emotional response
Yeah.
in me? We sometimes don't understand things about ourselves
Right.
unless
That's
we
exactly
bump up
right.
against that kind of thing.
You know, sometimes now when we have conflict, I stand back, I go, "Oh, goody.
Yes.
This is a way to figure out
Immediately or
something
later?
new."
Immediately
No,
or
not
later?
it's never immediate.
It's just all in his
I'm not
mind. He's saying
I'm
it.
not an alien. I'm a human. And in the moment, it's pretty hot. But when I
Yeah.
stand back, I go, "Oh, this is a chance to learn something new about my wife," which is
Mhm.
great. So anyway, it helps kind of speed up that process to
Yeah,
repair.
I learned not to rate her anything less than a 9.8, so that was good. That was worth it.
So, how do those therapy sessions go then? Is it all
Oh
about
my
maybe what
goodness.
you need to work on, or is she a little more mature now also and able to see where there's room for growth?
What I've loved about when we do therapy now, it's amazing how that there were wounds from early on in our marriage that going back and repairing those now, not that we didn't repair them back then or didn't, I mean, whatever we needed to do to move forward, but it's been actually really hard, really painful, but really good to be able to go back and just talk about some of these things that we experienced early in our marriage and what we learned owning, for me, owning my parts, owning how I showed up and what I chose to do with that, and just to care. Like it's the repairing for us now around that stuff is just being able to say, you know what, that so matters to me that you felt that way. And if I hear you felt this way, and I love that you're telling me that and leaning into that's come up a number of times. I mean, certainly we're talking about the future and we're talking about how we can continue to grow and, but there's been something powerful about going back and doing some repair work on some of those early stupid stories that people find super funny, but, we still carry the scars from those things. I mean, I would say they're a beautiful part of our love story now because we see what they did and how they grew us, but it's been powerful to go back and lean in. And I've learned things I didn't realize, Aaron, you felt that way or that it said that to you. Wow. Tell me more about that. And I'm so glad we've had this therapist guide us through that because as much as we teach this stuff, I don't know if that'd be a conversation I'd want to have outside of a therapist's office.
It does seem like we're not very mature when we first get married, but
Right.
yet we hear something that our spouse said to us years ago or a way that they reacted, and we keep telling ourselves stories as though the growth never happened, as though neither of us
Yeah.
have ever changed. And I love the language that you just shared, the things that you say to your wife. Oh, I didn't realize you felt that way, or man, I'm really sorry that happened.
Yeah.
And I never want to hurt you. Any other phrases that you use that are really helpful to approach
Yeah.
looking back at the past?
Yeah, I think again, the worst thing that I could do is to either try to explain why, because it's easy to go, hey, when we got married at 23, what on earth did I know? I was a punk. I carried baggage in that I hadn't dealt with. I mean, I
Yep.
could come up with some really good reasons for all that. They're legitimate, but not going there and just being open to what was that like? How did that impact you? What was the message? How did that make you feel about you and about us and in our marriage? And then at the end of the day, just going, I want to care and understand and empathize with that stuff and then continue to own. It's not like I'd never apologize for that stuff, but it's always fresh opportunity just to say, Aaron, Thank you for being willing to share that, and you matter, and how you felt mattered. And I get it. That makes sense. Of course you felt that way versus justifying and saying, geesh, come on. I was a kid back then. What did I know? Just saying, I'm so glad you're sharing this because I feel so connected to you knowing that, and then own again, just saying, yeah, you know what? I should never have said that. I should never done that. I behaved in a way that was wrong. I own it. And I want to ask you to forgive me for that. And she has. But yet I just think going through that again, there's something good about doing that. Because what I hear, and I'm sure you guys hear this as well, is sometimes when the past comes up, the temptation is to say, hey, whoa, hey, we've already talked about that. Why is this come up now? I thought we've moved beyond
Yeah.
it. It
Some
it
defensiveness.
robs, yeah, and I think it robs the couple of a beautiful opportunity to lean in, and the heart's bringing it up for a reason. And I used to go, "We've dealt with this. Why do we have to talk about it?" I would never, ever say that now. I would just, in my mind, go, "Okay, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. She loves me. I love her. There's something in there. Her heart has brought this up, and it's an opportunity, Smalley. Just lean in and care." I have to soothe myself in a lot of ways of just going, it's gonna be all right. And we get to a really cool place when I show up that way or as she shows up that way.
So it sounds to me like you are practicing the principle of curiosity.
Wow. That's yeah. Which one of you is the harp player there? That's
That's
What do
beautiful.
you
me.
I
got?
love it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
like,
It's a great
it's a
principle.
great illustration, though. Really, curiosity means it's such a powerful word.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
curiosity.
It's the opposite of judgment,
Yeah.
which usually gets me into
Oh
trouble.
yeah.
Why do you feel that way? And who feels that way? Why would you be saying it that way? There's so many ways that we judge each other when we try to have these conversations. And you're right. If I posture myself with curiosity, then it keeps my heart humble. It keeps me open to not being right and being wrong and misunderstand whatever. It's a great principle. So you're right. I just never paired it with a harp.
Wait,
I think I will from now on.
wait, wait, and the heavens open. So I think that we like to say the most important three words that in a relationship are not "I love you," but "Am I wrong?" And I'm not
Yeah.
saying I am wrong. I'm asking a question.
You're open to the
Am I? Yes.
possibility.
Am I wrong? Because it allows me to avoid shame and allows her to feel that there is some vulnerability
Yeah.
in this connection.
And you can have more than one perspective.
Yeah. You think about the Proverbs is saying pride leads to conflict. God's made it clear that a prideful heart will be opposed. He opposes the proud. And so will my wife. Every time I show up postured is prideful, judging, believing I'm right, all that stuff versus, yeah, I think curiosity ushers in, or is at least more likely to usher in grace. Erin usually gives me grace when I'm being curious and I'm seeking to understand or I'm asking her genuine questions, not leading her like a lawyer might
Yeah.
towards my end or conclusion. And you're right. I think that's a beautiful posture. And it does keep you open. Your heart stays open when it's humbled.
I think on occasion we have both been guilty of saying in the past, you said this or you did this. And my stance at that is usually getting defensive. That
Sure.
Wait, that's not.
we've talked
that's my
about that a
job.
lot of times.
My love, that's my job.
I'm a defender as well. So I hear you.
I think is it all men? Oh, just call us defensive. The four horsemen.
But that's the time I'm defensive as well,
Okay.
is when we do say that we're making a judgment because of past history. And maybe that just means, even though we've talked about it and explained and we've agreed that we've grown up and that we've moved on, I like what you said, there's still a part of our heart that isn't healed in that area. And
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
just put on that FM DJ voice, like I hear you using, and just toning it
Yeah.
down a little bit and being curious and exploring, but then also validating that I love you and I don't want you to hurt. And I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
was really stupid back then.
Yeah. Because what you're saying, what I so appreciate is that, yeah, if Aaron is using language that to me feels more accusatory, whereas tell me like it is, yeah, I usually get very defensive. But I think one of the things that has probably helped me out more in my life around being defensive with her is when it was like God finally like smacked me hard enough in the head to get that. I remember very clearly hearing from the Lord going, Greg, why do you give Aaron the power to define what is true about you?
Hmm.
She is not your source of truth. I am your source of truth. Because what I realized is that a lot of my defensiveness came from because Aaron felt it, thought it, shared it, experienced it in a certain way. I just thought it was truth. And I didn't want that to be true. I didn't want how she was describing me, or saying what I did or how I made her feel, whatever. I didn't want that to be true. I didn't believe that accurately described me. And so I was going to fight that. I was going to defend it tooth and nail until one day I finally was like, why do I get what that's so unfair to her to make her my source of truth?
Hmm.
I mean, legitimately, sure, if she's feeling something, I'm not going to argue or debate that, but it doesn't make it truth. And what I learned to do is instead of just blindly receiving or accepting simply because she feels it, thinks it, shares it, what if I just hear, take it in, and then send that up to the Lord and go, God, what's truth here? What are you are you using my wife right now? Or is this all her stuff? Because it's true that it could be, this is her stuff and I don't need to own any of that. It's probably more likely that God is using her to speak truth. But it was a very subtle difference, but a huge difference that I realized I gave her all that power to decide what's true about me. And it was never her meaning. It's just that's what I was hearing.
Mhm.
Oh, she felt this or thought this about me. So therefore it's true. Now I got to argue and defend it and debate it versus just going, so tell me what it is that you experience. Okay. So if I hear you right, you felt taken advantage of, you felt unimportant, you felt invalid, whatever. And then I tell her, so I'm going to take what you just said to the Lord. And now over time, she trusts that I actually will do that and listen. And I just believe God is he's so committed to truth in us understanding truth that he's always been so faithful in my life. I feel like he gives me a peace. Like Satan's lies are chaotic. We feel it. There's a chaos there. There's a darkness, all of that. But God's truth, boy, when I encounter that, I feel this warmth. I feel this calmness, this peace. And I'll go back to her and say, you know what? Yeah, God's confirming what you're saying. Now I'm totally open. Now I've encountered God's truth. And what it's done for me is now I'm really willing to hear her and listen in and lean in because this is not Aaron. This is God's truth. And that took me a long time. And that's why I was, Scott, not saying you're like this, but that's why I was, and I still do this. So I'm just saying, I'm still guilty of defending myself. I just now know I got to step back and, well, I'm making Aaron the source of my truth. I shouldn't do that.
I think the other really great thing about what you just shared is that it causes Erin to think, oh, is my judgment truth? It
Yeah.
causes her to look at
Yeah.
herself also, and she can do the same thing. She
Yeah.
can explore truth through that power greater than herself to see
Yeah.
if her interpretation of things
That's fair.
is right. And so
Totally right.
it does take that judgment and defensiveness and puts it in a pause, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
It does. If both of us are willing to go, okay, God, is this totally what I'm suggesting to Aaron? Is that my stuff? Is that my issue? Is that my baggage, my wound, my truth, like whatever? It Scott, going back to your point, like the just willing to be curious and to ask the questions postures us from pride to humility. And again, my experience, God's very faithful. So if we're both doing that, that's awesome. I can't control her. I wish I could, but hopefully she does it when I'm doing that as well.
I'm 100% convinced that Jesus Christ taught about the principle of curiosity, but somehow it got left out.
Yeah, right. The Hebrew or Greek word was poorly
It was
translated.
not translated.
Yeah.
He teaches us to ask and seek, so that in and of itself is curiosity.
Because I love the other empathy, compassion, love, right? Charity. These are all wonderful attributes. I think curiosity is pretty wonderful too. And of course, it takes these other things too, but like humility and
Meekness.
Yep. So
I agree. We're talking about curiosity as a way in the midst of, hey, we're in a conflict or buttons have gotten pushed, whatever. So how do we use curiosity there? But my goodness, if you and I, and we had not talked about this, but if I was to say, name one thing that I can help you guys resist drifting and feeling disconnected, feeling like married roommates, if I had to choose one thing, I mean, we wrote a whole book on it, so there's a lot of stuff in there. But if I was to choose one, I would agree with you and say curiosity, a willingness to keep pursuing knowledge and getting updated and staying current with our spouse because we're always changing. That's the benefit of a proactive curiosity of, man, what are you thinking about? What are you dreaming about? What's going on? Tell me, just staying curious and updated and current. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better, simpler way to resist the drift in a sense than curiosity. Scott, I would give my vote to you in the word curiosity. So,
I really, you're making me feel really good right now, Greg, because I like to joke.
Can you use the heart thing one more time?
I like to joke.
There you go. Curiosity. Yes.
I like to joke that on my tombstone, it will say, he was curious.
But but all joking aside though, but there are great values out there that we subscribe to and pursue. Curiosity is absolutely a great way, and why not be defined by that?
Yeah.
That's going to take you far in a lot of areas.
We also say a lot, when we know better, we do better. And so even expanding that curiosity to things like you do, to spend a day with a therapist or to read books about marriage, just being curious about how to make our marriages better can also help us be more connected and maybe have more insight into what kinds of things need to change, what kinds of things have done more harm than help when we didn't know better.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, everybody, we're so glad that you've been with us with Dr. Greg Smalley, and this is the end of the first part of our interview with him. We've loved his wisdom and his humor and his stories especially. Just wait for next week, where he's going to share about the benefits of marriage counseling, even when you think your marriage is good, and how to navigate really, really busy lives where you're so exhausted that sometimes it feels like the marriage comes last. And we will see you next Friday with this second episode, and hope everybody has a really great week. We'll see you on another exciting episode of Marriage IQ.